Did you know small companies on the Indian market are killing it?
So why are you missing out?
Let's go.
The problem that we're trying to solve is that of becoming financially independent. Everyone in the world has one source of income right now, and having a second source of income really helps, right? So let's say you lose your job. What do you do, right? It's a big problem that you have to face then. Had you had a second source of income, then it is much better. So that's the problem that we're trying to solve. How can people have a second source of wealth generation through the stock market?
Aditya, you speak about financial independence.
Right.
Can you define the term financial independence?
The term financial independence means that you don't work for money. You have sufficient money and you can do whatever you like. For example, for me, right, I quit my job when I had sufficient money and I know that I don't need any money anymore. And my money will actually work for myself and make more money. So the goal of financial independence is that your money works for yourself and makes more money for you. Then you don't need a job essentially, right? You do whatever you like. And that's the next stage of human evolution, because then everyone does what they were born to do and they don't work for money, right? So that is how I define financial independence, that money is not a problem in your life anymore.
You use the word wealth.
Right.
A lot of the people use the word money.
Right.
What's the difference? What's wealth? What's wealthy? What's rich? Where am I lost?
Wealth is something very personal, I would say. Some people will not consider even like 1,000 crores to be a lot of wealth. Some people will consider even 10 crores to be a lot of wealth. Some people will consider 1 crore to be a lot of wealth, right? It's very personal. I think wealth is something when you have all the means needed to live your life peacefully. I think once you achieve that level, right, then you don't really care about money anymore. So that's what I define wealth to be. Someone can say that okay, two crores for me is a good sum of money. Now I don't need money anymore because the money I can create from those 2 crores, that is good enough for me to lead a happy and peaceful life. So I think wealth is a very specific concept, and very personal, I would say.
How are you solving this problem?
See, I think people need to have a second source of wealth generation in the stock market. Okay, stock market is a very very powerful way of making money. Stock market doesn't differentiate between someone who has degrees or someone who does not have degrees, right? Stock market is the same for everyone, whether you are rich or you're poor. Stock market is exactly the same for everyone. The problem which people have is that they don't know how to pick stocks or how to invest in the stock market. And the underlying problem that is there is that people don't have the data to invest in the stock market, right? Now, I'll ask you a question now. What is the goal of a business?
The goal of a business is to take care of all the stakeholders, including the ones who invest in the business and the ones who are affected by my business. And for the ones who invest in the business, the goal of the business is to make me money.
I'll maybe paraphrase and what you said. It. The goal of a business is to offer exceptional customer service and make money in the process, right? That is, solve a problem, offer exceptional customer service, make customers happy, and make money in the process, right? Now, the goal, if that is the goal of business, a company which is constantly increasing its profits, is it a good company or a bad company?
Depends on whether the customers are happy or not.
You're right. I think that's a fair point.
Because you told me that there are two important things. If my profits are being increased at the cost of my product being bad, then I might not be a good company. But if my profits are being increased for the long run,
Right.
while making everybody happy,
Exactly.
then I'm a very nice company.
Exactly. That is the true goal of a business. And that is how you pick stocks as well. That you pick companies which are making customers happy and increasing their profits in the process.
Wait. Stocks are companies?
Yeah.
I didn't even know. What is a stock? I thought it's just something that goes up and down and round and like whatever happens.
What is the stock market?
What is it?
Why are we concerned that today Sensex has hit 80,000, or why are we concerned that markets are up or markets are down? What is the stock market?
And why does my father call it a gamble?
Stocks means the ownership of a company, a part ownership of a company. For example, you are also doing a podcast, right? Let's say you have this podcast or this any setup it can essentially be a company, right? Because most financial activities are done for economic incentives or money, right? So anything which earns money is in very high level a company, and you can own parts of the company. For example, let's say if I own 1/100th of your company, then technically the 1/100th of your profits are mine, right? Because I own 1/100th of your company. So stocks are essentially pieces of business, And how do you buy and sell pieces of businesses? Because it's a very, how do you find buyers and sellers for pieces of businesses, right? So you create a central mechanism where buyers and sellers of pieces of business come and they talk to each other. And they sort of buy and sell stuff to each other. That is what is stock market. That everyone in the stock market is a buyer of a business or a seller of a business, and they sort of transact in the stock market. And all of them own businesses.
You use the word central. Can you define that a little further?
You go to National Stock Exchange of India and say that, let's say I own Reliance. I am the owner of a part of Reliance, and you want to buy Reliance. Now, how do you come in touch with me, right? It is not easy to find me that, okay, this guy owns Reliance.
So wait, when I want to buy Reliance, I don't call up Mukesh Ambani and say I want to buy Reliance.
No, you don't call up Mukesh Ambani. You go to National Stock Exchange of India and you say that, hey, I want to buy Reliance. Can you find me a buyer for? Can you find me a seller for the stock? So NSE has me as a seller, and without telling you and me that who is a counterparty, NSE facilitates the transaction. Not a broker. NSE is the one. So broker is, you interact with the broker such as Zerodha or Grow to facilitate the transaction. The broker talks to the exchange. The exchange, you also have a broker that talks to the exchange, and exchange is at the center of all of this. So see, exchange's job is to ensure that this transaction gets completed properly and there is no counterparty risk. That it ensures that I have the stock and you are the right buyer, you have the money. So that's the job of the exchange. The job of the broker is to find all these people who are actually interested in buying and selling.
You use the word counterparty risk. I just want to make it like very, very clear for somebody watching this episode that these words are not so complicated as they seem, because we in finance like to make things very, very complicated. Right. So what do you mean by counterparty risk?
So for example, let's say I am selling my stock and you're buying it, but let's say you don't have money to buy it. Then there's a problem, right? If we are directly talking to each other, then I may transfer my stock to you, but then you don't give me the money. Then that's a problem for me. How do I know that you will give the money to me? So I rely on National Stock Exchange that, okay, you take the money from the person and ensure that the stock is delivered to the person and the money is delivered to me. So then you have that central person in between, and there's no risk to either of us, right? They will transfer the stock only once you pay them the money, and they will ensure that I have the stock as well, and I am not lying, right? Essentially, it's a brand in between who is the most trusted source of sort of getting this done.
How does the stock market make me passive income, or how does the stock market become my second source of income? Because here I'm just talking about, okay, I'll take this company, I'll take that company, and this company may make money and then I will get part of that money. But then there are companies that don't make any money, and I still want to invest in them. And then there are random things like IPO, which is something. So let's start with the passive income bit.
When Reliance was started in, let's say 30 years back, let's say the Reliance had a profit of 1 crore on that day, right? Now let's say the profits have increased to 30,000 crore. Okay. Had you invested in Reliance when the profit was 1 crore, now your investment would have become 30,000x. Okay. If the profit of a company increases from 1 crore to 10 crore, the stock price also increases by 10x. Again, I'm very grossly simplifying it for the audience. If profit बढ़ेगा, तो price बढ़ेगा. Profit नहीं बढ़ेगा, तो price नहीं बढ़ेगा.
Is that always true though? I don't agree with you necessarily. So why I don't agree with you? And you may take this as an attack because my beliefs are a little separated. There's this thing called price to earnings, and price to earnings is how much is something selling for versus how much does it earn. And there might be a squeeze or an expansion of price to earnings. So if my earnings, like if my price to earnings is decreasing over time, चाहे मेरी earnings बढ़ती रहे, मेरा जो price है हो सकता है वो consistency पे आ जाए. So how do I look at something like that?
Sure. So there's something known as a fair price to earnings ratio of a company. Okay. So for example, consumer goods companies in India typically have 60 price to earnings ratio. Okay. So let's say you have a consumer goods company which has a profit of 1 crore and it has a price to earnings ratio of 60. Now, if the profit increases to 10 crore, if your price to earnings ratio will remain the same and the stock price will also increase by 10x from whatever was the stock price earlier. Now the stock price will become 10x. What can happen temporarily is that your stock price only becomes 5x and your PE reduces to 30. In that case, again after some time, the stock market will correct itself and take the PE back to 60, and again the stock price will become 10x. So net, if a company, what you are saying is if a company is trading at overvaluation, if a consumer goods company is trading at 300 PE even if the price increases, nothing will happen to the stock. If a company is trading at fair valuation, then profit increase is directly proportional to price increase.
But fair
How do
value.
I find fair valuation?
So for that, you need to have some idea of the stock market that, okay, a consumer goods company trades at a 60 price to earnings ratio. An IT service company trades at a 40 price to earnings ratio. And this depends on the growth rate of a business. Okay. A fast growth business trades at a higher multiple or a higher price to earnings ratio. And a slow growth business trades at a lower multiple or a lower price to earnings ratio. Okay. So I'll make it very, very simple to you. Price to earnings ratio is, अगर मैं पूरी कंपनी खरीद लूं, कितने साल में पैसा वापस आ जाएगा, राइट? व्हेन विल यू बाय अ कंपनी विच इज ट्रेडिंग एट 100 प्राइस टू अर्निंग्स रेशियो, आपका पैसा 100 साल में वापस आ रहा है, विच इज अ बिग नंबर, राइट? यू विल बाय सच अ कंपनी ओनली इफ यू नो कि इसका प्रॉफिट बहुत बढ़ने वाला है, एंड जो 100 का नंबर दिख रहा है स्क्रीन पे, 100 का पे ही दिख रहा है, वो गलत है, वो रॉन्ग नंबर है, एक्चुअल में पैसा जल्दी आ जाएगा बिकॉज इट्स अ वेरी फास्ट ग्रोथ कंपनी.
I want to use an example that you have quoted earlier. You said that a consumer goods company has a price to earnings ratio of 60. So today, if I see that at 100, you would be more likely to buy it given that the price to earnings ratio will come down?
If the price to earnings ratio of a consumer goods company is 100, that means that future earnings have been baked into the stock. It's a more expensive stock, right? It's overvalued. You don't buy overvalued things. You buy undervalued things. So if you buy a good consumer, if you find a good consumer goods company at a 30 or a 20 price to earnings ratio, then you know that it is trading cheap in the market, right? I'll give you a very simple example. Let's say you go to the market and buy diamonds, and the diamond is selling for 1 rupees per kg. Will you buy it or not? You will buy diamonds at 1 rupees per kg, right? Because the fair value of diamonds is much higher. So if a company is trading at a lower than fair valuation, you want to buy the company. If a company is trading at higher than fair valuation, you don't want to buy the company. So a good consumer goods company, if it is trading at 10 price to earnings ratio, it's a very cheap company. A good consumer goods company, if it is trading at a 180 price to earnings ratio, it's not a great company. So you want to buy as cheap as possible. That's sort of it's sort of normal market. Just think of it as any commodity. Only thing is, in case of diamonds, you know the value because it's very intuitive for you, right? In case of companies, it is not intuitive for you. How do you make it intuitive? It is price to earnings ratio. If the price, every sector has a price to earnings ratio. If you're buying at a much cheaper price to earnings ratio than the sectoral price to earnings ratio, you're actually getting a good deal. If you're buying at a much higher valuation than the sectoral price to earnings ratio, you're getting a bad deal.
Price to earning ratio as something compared to the industry, we tend to take it historically. आज से 10 साल 20 साल से ऐसा चल रहा है, so maybe this should continue forever, and this is like, okay, I'll take past data to manufacture future data. If I am to rephrase price to earning ratio, it would be how much am I giving in for how much will I get out within 1 year. So if it is 60 PE, then for a $60 investment or for a 60 rupee investment, I'm getting 1 rupee back. Okay. My question is, many a times industries reach their cyclical top. माने कि many a times industry की industry खत्म हो जाती है. For example, post offices when the email comes in, right? At that point, there is no future of the sector. At that point, the price to earnings is not going to go back to normal. How do I know that the industry is not going to bounce back? How do I develop this kind of intuition? How do I know the worth of the diamond?
I think that is very intuitive, I would say. For example, the price to earnings ratio for a renewable energy company in 2008 would not have been very high because no one really gave a damn about renewables at that point of time. But today, renewable energy is very, very important. Everyone in the world is focusing on renewable energy, right? Therefore, all renewable energy companies have a very, very high price to earnings ratio. The entire sector is trading at a very, very high price to earnings ratio. Okay, because the sector is very sort of, it's ripe for growth in the future, right? So all growth sectors typically have high price to earnings ratio. A dead industry like a post office has a very low price to earnings ratio. So it is very much intuition based. Our in flavor industry will typically tend to fetch high valuations, and out of flavor industry will tend to fetch lower valuations.
How do I develop the intuition? Because intuition has to be developed in some way.
It's fairly logical, right? So let's talk about electric vehicles. Do you think electric vehicles will grow in the future? Yes or no?
Yes.
It is growing, right? Electric vehicles are growing, and you would see in the stock market as well, electric vehicle companies, they get a very, very high price to earnings ratio.
How do I know how much will it grow?
You should have a basic market understanding. Right now, electric vehicle penetration in India is around 1%, which is very low, right? 99% is normal vehicles. Now, Going from 1% to 40% is a big change, right? Let's say if I compare it with if I, let me for example take an example of coal power versus solar power. Again, solar power penetration is very low. Coal power penetration is very high. So if there's a company which is generating power through coal, it will not fetch high valuations because coal is a declining thing, right? Solar is a in place thing, and solar will grow in the future. So solar companies will have higher price to earnings ratio than a coal powered kind of a company. Very logical, very basic logic. A drone company will fetch high valuations, right? Because drones will be there in the future. If I ask you a question, what do you think will grow faster, cement or drone? What would be your answer?
Drones,
Drones,
but
right?
cement would not grow as fast because it's already grown to that extent.
Exactly. Because of the higher base effect, right? It's already grown a lot. So cement companies will fetch much lower valuation than drone companies because the growth rates are much.
But here comes the other question. The answer is not as black and white.
It's not.
Because cement company would grow if India is investing a lot in real estate projects, and suddenly all of that debt that the country is going to take up comes to the cement, right? So now,
Like India's building a lot of roads right now. So a lot of
Again, logical question. Do you think cement will grow faster than drones?
I question that drones are currently not in use
Yeah.
as much as they could be. I also question that drones might never be in use as much as we believe they could be. So now here comes the conundrum, and that's the fun of the market, I feel. I feel that everyone develops some sense of their beliefs on which they play in the market.
Not really. Again, I think, see, we can answer this question very simply by looking at the earnings of companies. Okay. Now, if you think that cement is growing fast, and you sort of have a debate with me, right? That you are saying that cement is growing fast, I'm saying drone is growing fast. We can check the profits of companies, and we can see which companies are growing profits faster. You will see that drone companies are actually 10xing their profit in 1 year. Cement companies are hardly growing by 15, 20, 30% a year. So that is pure data. It is not a question of belief. It is exactly the corporate earnings. Check the corporate earnings. I'll tell you an example of renewable energy. Okay, there's a company which is growing fairly fast. The profit was maybe around 10 crores last year. This year, the profits generated 50 crore. So it was 5x profits in 1 year. Check any cement company, the growth is hardly 20-30%, not more than that. So you can see by corporate profits whether your belief is right or my belief is right. It is pure data. No question of belief as such. It's only data.
Do I have just the past data, or can I also start manufacturing my future data based on the current beliefs how the system is going? For example, let's say I have a drone company, and that drone company has a 3-year long order, right? I just got that order in. I register it as as an accrual, and now I can show that in my earnings that I'm going to get this order. Let me show that my earnings are bumped. But as a cement company, I know that cement is a consistently growing dhanda, like it's a traditional Indian dhanda, right? But after 3 years, the company that is getting the drones realizes that there is no future. I'm not going to give you another order, and then the company was tough, right? Should I even be in the market for 3 years with the drones, or should I not?
So I think you raise a very important point that money is invested on future, not on past. Okay, so if you know the order book of a company, that's a very powerful piece of data. Okay, so for example, there's this small company which has a revenue of 100 crore this last year, and it got a 700 crore order. Okay, to be executed this year itself. If it executes the order, just think the revenue growth is 7x in 1 year, and profit can also grow by the same amount, right? So future data is much more important than past data. Cement company will never have such huge order books, or their growth rates will never be that high. But if you have this data of order books, or let's say capacity expansion, right? I'll give you another example for your company. Let's make it very real. Let's say I tell the viewers that tomorrow Nikhil Kamath is coming on this podcast. That means that your viewership is going to grow like crazy, right? Which means that people will actually invest in your company and make money. So you make money till the profits are growing. The day the profits stop growing, you'll say Tata bye bye to the company and go out.
what if Nikhil Kamath doesn't come on the podcast? You have said Nikhil Kamath is coming on the podcast, or we are expecting Nikhil Kamath to come on this podcast in 6 months' time.
Correct.
Based on that belief, people have invested.
Correct.
There is no concrete evidence to say that he is coming or he is not coming. However, 6 months down the line, people realize that he has not turned up.
Exactly.
What then?
Everything in the world is probabilistic, right? He may not come. Let's say something happens and he has to. like he can't come, right? So of course there's an execution risk in everything, right? That is why you never buy one company, you buy 20 companies in a basket of companies based on data. For example, let's say your podcast Nikhil Kamath is coming. Second company I invest in is a company which has a 700 crore order, which I just talked about. Third company I invest in, which is tripling its capacity. Now, all three events not happening is highly unlikely. You maybe Nikhil Kamath doesn't turn up to your podcast, but the second and the third event will happen, right? Similarly, if you're betting on 20 such events, which are high probability, that is when you make money. And all this is done on information. Nikhil Kamath coming to your show is a piece of information, right? Which is a valuable piece of information. Similarly, a company having a 700 crore order book is a valuable piece of information. Similarly, a company 4xing its capacity is a valuable piece of information. Investing is done based on this future information. This is exactly what Sovrenn provides.
Guys, too much Nikhil Kamath. You need to get him on our podcast. So go to Nikhil Kamath's episode, start spamming him. You need to be on Thought Bistro.
So don't get into involuntary collaboration. Let
Make
him
it
come.
happen.
Let him come of his own volition. This goes back to my next question though. Here we're talking about stock markets and investing in the stock markets being a passive source of income. How are you supposed to get all this information or be aware of all this information? Make sure you place your investments accordingly and have this be a secondary source of income. What is the time you are giving this thing? What is the effort?
I will give you 5 pieces of information, okay? And now you have to tell me which do you like the most. Or maybe I'll give you firstly 2 pieces of information. You'll have to tell me which do you like the most and which one do you want to invest on, okay? Reliance gets a 1 crore order. Reliance, which is a 15 lakh crore company, gets a 1 crore order. That's the first piece of information. Second piece of information, Dynamic Services, which is a 200 crore company, gets a 5,000 crore order. Which of these two information is more valuable piece of information?
The second one, because it's the scale, company, yeah.
The scale, right? Reliance 15 lakh crore company getting a 1 crore order is a meaningless piece of information. It should not be even coming to you. It is not a good piece of information, right? The second most piece of information is far more powerful. So you have to hunt for such piece of information.
Do you not think that the second piece of information also has a lower probability of completion?
No, this is, let's say the second piece of information gets order from a government of India entity. Now the government of India entity is not stupid to give this order, and all this is hypothetical, right? If the second order is from government of India entity, then you know that the government of India entity would have done some diligence, and that's why they gave the order, right? So the probability of that happening is fairly high because someone has done the diligence of the company, right? So again, the job is to hunt for these pieces of information which are meaningful. Sovrenn hunts for these pieces of information and provides it to the users. So for example, I'll give an example again. Thought Bistro has a sales target of X crore this year, let's say. Now, if you make this information public, and if the sales target is ambitious enough, I will make this information public to my users. That okay, Thought Bistro has this much sales target. It's a very ambitious target, and they have a good track record also. If your track record is good, I will make this information public. Let's say you don't have a good track record, and you give a very ambitious sales target. I will not make this information public because I know that you are bluffing, right? So we will check the track record of companies and provide this data to people that okay, this looks like a meaningful piece of information to us. Read this information.
200 CR company getting a 5,000 CR order shows that they don't have a track record of doing 5,000 CR orders.
Okay, good question again.
So would you post that information on Sovrenn or not?
Now let's say this 200 crore company had a revenue of 1 crore in FY20, 3 crores in FY21, 20 crores in FY22 and 50 crores in FY23. Every year the company is increasing profits, right? And revenues. Clearly it is run by a good guy because that is why they are increasing things, right? Now the good guy has reached such a scale that they are able to get a 5,000 crore order and the government of India entity waited the order and gave the order. Now the track record is good, right? So essentially, again, just to sort of make it simpler for you, right? A student who has a good track record in, let's say, class 1 to 9, right, is more likely to do well in class 10 also, even though it's a completely different challenge, right? Because the past track record is good. So you check the marks track record of a student and see whether they will do well in the next year or not. Of course, nothing in the world is guaranteed. It is not that they will be able to deliver the order. That is not true, right? It is a probabilistic event, but if the track record is good, the probability is high. And again, like I said, invest in 20 companies with meaningful pieces of information where the probability of success is high. That is exactly what is stock market.
Aditya, how are you establishing trust in all this? Because Today you are saying the order has been validated by the government of India, which you trust, which is why you are releasing the information. I trust you as part of Sovrenn, which is why I am trusting that Sovrenn has released correct information.
Right.
How is Sovrenn establishing this trust? Why should I trust Sovrenn?
You are not trusting Sovrenn, you are trusting SEBI, because as per SEBI guidelines, the companies have to publish this information to exchanges. Okay, so not trusting Sovrenn, you're trusting SEBI and exchanges, because this information we are fetching from them. SEBI, Security and Exchange Board of India, they have guidelines that whenever a company gets a large order, or if a company is doing capacity expansion, or if a company is doing sales, giving sales target, or if a company is doing something meaningful, they have to tell to the stock exchange that okay, we are doing this. Okay, so that's a SEBI government guideline, regulator guideline, that any company, any listed company, whenever it has a meaningful piece of information, and again I'm slightly oversimplifying it for people because there are different things of what you have to tell the exchange, what not. Then they have to tell the exchange that okay, this is what we are doing. Sovrenn fetches all this information from the exchange website. So we are not creating information, we are fetching this information and we're filtering information.
You're filtering information, right? There also there is trust. You're saying Reliance receives a 1 crore order. That is not information that you will choose to make public. Whereas XYZ company, which is 200 crore valuation, receives a 5,000 crore order. That is something you are vetting and making public. That is your judgment that you are making one piece of information public to your users, and one you are choosing not to because according to you that does not have an impact. Therein there is trust. Correct. Because your user, given it's a passive source of income for that user, is not going to be vetting five different sources. They're probably using one source or maybe two at the max. That is still trust. How are you getting people to trust you?
It is exchange information. We are not vetting any information. We believe that whatever is coming on exchange is correct and we share that data. Now it can happen that exchange themselves have wrong information, which happens, right? You would have heard about Satyam scandal, right? Where people gave wrong data to exchanges, wrong results are published, right? So that can happen, and that does happen in the stock market. Someone is lying, someone is publishing fake data, which can't be solved for. The only way to solve that problem is invest in 20 companies, so that even if you get caught in a bad company, some wrong guy, right? Then that problem is not there for you.
As the company owner, company founder of Sovrenn, you are taking the responsibility that if I had gone on my own to invest, there would be 20 companies I would need to invest in, and then I would be diversified. I would have my risk in all the places. And risk is another topic which we can discuss. But if I'm going with Sovrenn, then at that point, maybe those 20 companies become a little safer. Because I'm getting my data from you, everything is a little less riskier. So how are you able to filter that information for me as an investor and lower my risk?
So I don't think we are lowering the risk as such. I think risk remains the same. Risk is not low. Your job of searching the information is becoming easier. If you go to find on your own, you will also find this piece of information that Reliance gets a 1 crore order. Now scanning from 10,000 pieces of information is tough, right? Sovrenn Times, which is our newspaper, we cover only 5 news pieces per day. जो आपने सुना होगा आज के मुख्य समाचार, तो मुख्य समाचार में हम 5 ही मुख्य समाचार कवर करते हैं कि ये 5 समाचार है, जबकि दुनिया में 1 लाख समाचार आए होते हैं. अब you can argue with me that okay, according to me these are not the 5 most important items, which I will say that okay, that is your point of view. You can see my Mukhya Samachar. If you like it, well and good. If you don't like my Mukhya Samachar, it's fine. Maybe we can agree to disagree.
Top 3 most important things you would look at in order for these to become the top 5 of the day.
So again, I think some are very, very simple, that there are 6,000, firstly, there are 6,000 companies in the stock market.
Indian stock market.
Indian stock market. Now, I would say maybe 30% of those companies are loss-making companies. Loss-making companies are bad businesses because the goal of a business is to make profit. We will never cover a loss-making business. It is not Mukhya Samachar for us. Even if you get a large order, if you're loss-making, your track record says that you will execute the order with a loss, which I don't really care about.
So you are exclusively focused on the earnings, and if there is a very high growth company which has a loss right now, such as Swiggy,
we will not cover. We don't cover loss-making companies. It is as a matter of principle, we don't cover loss-making companies. Losses are a bad thing. We will not cover a loss-making company. Okay. We typically prefer sharing, covering, giving media sort of publicity to companies which have a good track record of profits in the past, okay, and which are operating at all-time high operating profits and all-time high net profits and all-time high sales. So we have a logic. There's a logic of, see, for example, if you compare Sovrenn, right? Sovrenn is a Shark Tank for listed companies. Now, how does Shark Tank feature companies? They would have a logic in their mind, right? A lot of people would apply to Sovrenn or to Shark Tank, but they choose to cover only select pieces of select companies, right? Similarly, we have our own logic in place. We cover select companies based on our logic. One is we don't cover loss-making companies. We cover companies which are at all-time high operating profits. These are two pieces of algorithm. Or there are multiple other parts of algorithm as well which we have, which sort of, it will be too much technical if we actually go there.
But if I am covering high profit making companies which have done well for a longer time, that means that innately they are lesser risk companies. So is it, how often will it really happen that I will get a 200 CR company getting a 5,000 CR order? I think the recency or the frequency of it would be much lesser.
200 crore company getting a 5,000 crore order is never possible.
I'm just saying an idealistic, because that was the example, but like some absurd value, right? So how
Let's
often
go
will
with a realistic example. Let's
Give us
say a
one, yeah.
200 crore company. What is the most realistic scenario that you have experienced?
I know this 300 crore company which got a 700 crore order. Okay, 300 crore market cap company which had a revenue of 100 crore and it got a 700 crore order, right? That was a very sort of a atrocious piece of information, right? Something which is hard to sort of believe, right? But you order book sale. If I compare sales targets of companies, right? I know of, I think, 40 companies in India which have given a sales target of more than 50% growth this year. Okay. Now, and all that information is there on a platform that, okay, their sales target is more than 40%. So there are 40 such companies. There would be like maybe another 100 companies which are doubling their capacity or more than doubling their capacity. So that's another 100 companies. So maybe there are, let's say, 100 more companies which got these kinds of atrocious orders. So like we cover different pieces of data, right? Sales target, orders, capacity expansions. So all this, like maybe I would say 400, 500 companies are getting like these slightly surprising pieces of information which are there amongst the 6,000 company. It's a 6,000 company.
Let's have one very juicy news that you've had in the past week.
See, I don't want to sort of say that. I think you can sort of see in our newspaper, which comes every day. So I will not want to say comment on any. It's not. This is not juicy news. This is not. This is proper hardcore data, financial data, right? This is not being done for TRPs. It's being done for making good piece of information more accessible to you, right? And by the way, I think you were talking about some. You're using the term public, right? Making it public. So all this information is already public. I hope you understand that. Yeah, it's just filtration that's happening. Yeah.
That is where my question was coming from. That you are making it public to your users through your platform.
Correct.
Obviously, as you said, this is public information which you are filtering for people. So people are on your platform because they have trust, because there is filtering which they have seen over the years, or they have heard you, or they've heard you on this podcast and they think that, okay, this guy seems trustworthy, he seems like he knows what he's talking about, so let us use this platform. I have still not understood where you as a platform have established trust with your user.
The proof of the, what's that English saying, right? Pudding is in the pie, right? Unless you try the information, you don't know, right? Whether it is good information or not. How do you should not trust me, according to me, right? You should check the information yourself and see whether it makes sense for you or not, right? So that is why we have a free trial that, okay, you look at a piece of information for 1 month and figure out whether you think it makes sense for you or not. There is a chance you say that, okay, we don't find a piece of information good, which is perfectly fine. We can agree to disagree. But there are, based on our data, 25% people actually love our information. 75% don't know what to do with the information. 25% can actually understand the information, interpret the information. Now, even let's say I give you a piece of information. If you don't have a basic finance background, or if you don't understand math that well, you may not be able to interpret that piece of information, right? It is not that easy, right? So I would say, and then there's a second problem of having time to interpret the information. I would say that 25%, almost 100% people can understand the piece of information. 25% people find time to read the information and use it to their own benefit. 75% do not have the time to actually sort of use that information, right? Because they're busy, they don't have ultimately have to read these pieces of information, right? To consume and understand. So 75% will not have the time, 25% have the time, and they sort of become our customers.
What is Sovrenn doing? How is your platform being used? Let's get into the usability of the platform. Sure. What is it? Today I log into Sovrenn, what do I get?
So there are multiple pieces of products that we have. One is Sovrenn Times, which is our daily newspaper, which is Aaj ke 5 Mukhya Samachar. So you get 5 pieces of information every day.
Is this physical newspaper?
It's a digital newspaper. It comes in the app every day at 8 p.m. in the night. Okay. So whatever happened in the day gets published. 5 most important pieces of information gets published in the night, and you can read those pieces of information. You can also read about upcoming IPOs and all, and we haven't talked a lot about IPOs, but IPO information is also that which companies are getting listed in the market. And we also have macroeconomic information, one macroeconomic information piece per day. Let's say RBI releases inflation data or something like that. So one macroeconomic information piece per day is also included in our newspaper, which comes at 8 p.m. per day. Our second product is Sovrenn Discovery, which is an encyclopedia that we have created of information. Okay. Let's say you want to know which all companies have their sales target of more than 40% this year. You can check our encyclopedia and get this information. Okay. Let's say you want to know which companies have received very large orders in the last 1 year. You can check our encyclopedia and get this information. Let's say there are some famous investors in the market, right? Let's say, and maybe I'll again give a hypothetical example. Let's say Warren Buffett starts buying an Indian company stock. Obviously, Warren Buffett is a famous investor, right? We will cover this piece of information in our encyclopedia as well. That okay, Warren Buffett is a great investor and he purchased this stock. Okay, so that information is also there in the platform. So sales target information, capacity expansion information, HNI buying information. Sometimes promoters themselves start buying their stock in the market. That information, capacity expansion, large order, all that information you can check in our encyclopedia or called Sovrenn Discovery, where you can discover these pieces of information in one go. So in one go, you will come across 40 companies which have a more than 50% sales target, right? So that's the second product. Our third product is Sovrenn Prime, which has 2 parts. One is, so I think he was also talking about trust, right? That how do you trust Sovrenn? The next level question is, how do you trust the company, right? Sovrenn has published information believing that, okay, the company has published this information to the exchange and it is right. What if the company itself published wrong information, right? How does anyone check that? So we also interview promoters, and whatever they say, you can find on our platform. Now you can read the promoter interview of how the promoter is talking and form your own judgment whether you trust the company or not, right? So even that's a piece of check. Now promoter interviews are proprietary information. We will interview the promoter and publish it on our platform. So that's Sovrenn Prime, where we conduct promoter interviews. And again, if you look at it, right, all these pieces of information are about companies, but these companies have detailed backgrounds, right? Like company was started in 1985, what it did later. All this information we capture in a detailed company article in Sovrenn Prime as well. So that's a third offering, promoter interview and a detailed company article in Sovrenn Prime. So these are the 3 pieces of information.
There are numerous solutions for data in finance. Like I have a finance background, but I was primarily based in the US. So many different websites, so many different platforms, right? How is your solution not just an incremental upgrade, not just a parallel, but like a breakthrough?
Information is there everywhere, right? Everything is information. This glass lying on this table is also information, right? That okay, I can convey this information also, right? Now, who tells what is important, what is not important? कौन बताएगा क्या जरूरी है क्या जरूरी नहीं है? ये कोई बताता ही नहीं है. Everyone just shares plain information, plain and simple information. We are the only ones who filter information and say that okay, for us these 5 pieces of information are important. Information is ubiquitous, right? It is there everywhere, but it has a lot of junk information. 90% information in across the world is junk. In fact, 99%. 1% is important. No one is, you can tell me one platform which say that okay, this is important piece of information. According to me, Sovrenn has only important pieces of information, nothing else. So we are the only platform which publishes only important pieces of information.
Now, let's say I act upon your information, and let's say now my stock is down.
Yeah.
Now what? Do I just stop using you and be like, "Ye to banda theek nahi hai, chhod do"? Or is there something that you can offer?
Stock will go down. No one can say, I'm not saying that these information pieces makes the stock go up, right? Like you said, if a 200 crore company gets a 5,000 crore order, the order may not get executed. So I'm not saying that the stock will go up. I am never saying that. I'm just saying that this is information. You chose to act on that information yourself, right? Believing that my information was important. Now you should, if the stock is down, that is an outcome of you choosing a bad stock. My information was bad is something separate. You can, if you thought that information was bad, you should not have acted on the information itself, right? You found the information, you chose, the information was genuine, right? You should verify the information from everywhere. You should apply your own common sense that, okay, does this information seem important to me or not? If it seems valuable to you, only then you will act on the information. Otherwise, you will not act on the information.
Basically, Sovrenn is a information site. I am going to Sovrenn today like I open any other newspaper or any reading thing that I choose to consume. Daily basis, I am going to get a certain amount of news, certain number of I have an encyclopedia which I can go through, and I have bonus content that that you guys do that is proprietary to you.
I have one better. They are like the rabbit in Alice in Wonderland. They lead you to one hole, and after that, the adventure is yours.
Exactly.
But like they tell you which hole the adventure lies.
We only share data about companies which have a market capitalization of less than 20,000 crores. Now, why we cover small companies? Big companies becoming bigger is obviously tougher, right? So big companies they get a lot of attention from everyone. Everyone gives attention to the big companies, right? Tata Group will get a lot of attention, but a small KPI Green Energy will not get attention. So our focus is on small companies because that's where crazy amount of information is there, right? Tons and tons of information. So we focus on small companies because that is where information filtration becomes difficult. That is why people don't even attempt it, and that is why we're the only company in the world which actually does information filtration and no one else.
What percentage of companies out of the 6,000 companies that are part of the Indian Stock Exchange, what percentage of those are under 20,000 crore market cap?
Out of 6,000, I think 5,000 are under 20,000 crore market cap. So it's a very, very large chunk of companies. Out of 5,000, we provide data for 400 companies.
These are consistently the same 400, or do they keep all?
It can change. It depends on piece of information, right? It can keep on changing as well.
Why do you think was it the right time to start Sovrenn in India? Is this the time to start your business? Like why?
If you look at the stock market right now, we are going through amongst the biggest bull runs that India has ever witnessed. And why? Let's say there are 5,000 companies in India, okay, and let's say Indian GDP is $1 trillion. In 5 years, India doubles its GDP. How much value addition happened? $1 trillion, right? Now India is a $3 trillion economy with still 5,000 companies, which will again it double or maybe like our growth rate is 12-13%, right? So 5 साल में double हो जाएगा. So the value creation happening by each company is massive. जो पहले हुआ था उससे बहुत ज़्यादा हो रहा है. That is the reason we are in a very, very strong bull market, and that is why a lot of wealth. Basically, this decade will form the next Reliance of India. This decade will form the next ITC of India. This decade will form the next HDFC Bank of India.
What does that mean?
Matlab, there will be a very powerful group which is very small right now, but after 10 years it will be very, very powerful because now is the right time. So, agar aap you did not have the chance to invest in Reliance, right? Because you were very young and I was very young, right? Our parents had the chance, but they never understood stock market properly, so they never invested. We have the chance to invest in the next Reliance because tons of wealth creation will happen in the next 5-10 years. It is the golden age of India. Golden age of wealth creation and profit growth will happen, and now is perhaps the best time to invest in the stock market. Last 1 year has actually shown what the stock market has done, right? And even if you look at the American economy, the Chinese economy, 3 trillion is sort of the inflection point where economy really takes off, stock market really takes off. So it's a great time to create wealth. Massive wealth creation is happening in the stock market. You just have to be aware about the right piece of information and take the right decision.
Aditya, the other question I had for you is, you're saying that you're helping people understand the stock market, or our parents didn't invest because they were not understanding the stock market. How is Sovrenn, which is an information filtration company, helping people understand the stock market?
Sovrenn teaches investing free of charge. Okay, so you can visit the Sovrenn website. There are two videos that we have, 5 hours in total. You can watch the videos and learn investing. Then you know how to use a piece of information. It's completely free. Just watch it and learn it. We also have another free feature. We want you to be informed, right? Let's say you guys have a portfolio of stocks. You should ideally be informed what your stocks are doing. If your stock posted a bad result, you have the right to know about it, right? We have a free feature called Sovrenn Pulse. Give us your portfolio and we'll tell you what your stocks are doing. If they're getting large orders, again completely free. We want people to be intelligent and informed. To make them use information properly, we teach investing free of charge. I also do Twitter spaces very often. On Twitter, I clear doubts of people fairly frequently, so that people become more informed and they can use the information properly. Because I think investing literacy in India is not that high. Many people are learning investing. Most people don't know investing. That's why we just made it free of charge. Go to Sovrenn, learn investing free of charge by watching the 2 videos.
Why are you doing this? Why do you care?
If people become financially independent, it is obviously a win for the society as a whole, right? It's a win for the people. And I think once people stop caring about money, right, that's when they can actually sort of do the thing they were born to do, right? Matlab, let's say right now, let's say you are very interested in painting, but maybe painting may not be a sort of a great money making occupation, right? So you would do something else. But let's say you're completely financially secure, you would do want to do painting, right? Why did I start this company just now? Because I became financially independent 2 years back. I don't need money anymore. I am done with money because I know my money will make more money for me, right? So I don't need money anymore. I'm done financially. I'm financially independent now, and I can choose to take risks. So you can choose to take risks whenever you're financially independent. Obviously, the society benefits as a whole if they understand investing and if they become financially independent. And one more thing, I think one of the biggest problems facing the world is also a problem of ovarian lottery. Ovarian lottery. This is something. This is a term used by Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett says that which place you are born, right, is decides your destiny. If you were born in a construction worker's house, right, and versus if you're born in a middle class family which has a lot of resources, your probability of success is actually lower if you're born in a construction worker's house, right? Because they may not be able to give you the right resources. The probability becomes lower, right? Now, many times these people will not have like really formal pieces of information. They will not be able to navigate the life easily. Luckily, stock market is not very complex, very basic. Like we had the conversation, right? I'm sure you have a fairly decent understanding of stock market now. Even people who are 10th pass, 5th pass, they can easily navigate stock market because it's basic math, it's basic profit, it's basic data. You understand data, you understand profits, you can sort of make money in the stock market. And it also helps people who don't have an option, like they can invest in the stock market and make money.
How does Sovrenn make money?
Sovrenn obviously shares this information with people, and we have a subscription model. For sharing this information for 1 year, there's a subscription fee that we have.
How much do you cost?
Our newspaper is 365 rupees for 1 year. It's the cheapest newspaper in the world. I don't think there's anything cheaper than 365 per year, right? It's ₹1 per day. Our trial is free, and our encyclopedia and everything else, all the other features, that is priced at 5,000 per annum, which is also fairly affordable. We are the most economical platform in India and the world. Our newspaper is the cheapest in the world. Our newspaper is the only small cap focused newspaper in the world. Only newspaper which comes late at night at 8 p.m. and the cheapest newspaper in the world.
And my access to you is via the app.
It's via the app, correct.
You also have a website?
We have a website, we have an app.
So both have the same information.
Yes.
How are you going to defend your position 10 to 20 years from now? Let's say your business works. Let's say you're able to filter this. Let's say I can put in an algo to get those 4 or 5 companies, and I can put in an algo to give me that news. How will you defend your position?
All this information is being filtered through a combination of tech and manual filtering. Okay. Now, manual filtering is a knowledge that we have, which is not being shared. At the end of it, me and my co-founder, we filter the information, and that's the knowledge we have.
Personally,
Every day we have to be active. We can't go on holidays. We have to be active every day and filter information daily, right? Because after tech, after a first layer of human intervention, the information comes to us, and one of us has to be there. So it's a proper knowledge moat. To actually replicate us, you have to have the same knowledge that we have, right? Which is, I'm not saying not doable, but of course you have a head start because I've been doing this for, I'm an investor myself, and you can actually Google my name. You will find my deals in the market because I'm a fairly, well, I invest decent sizes. So NSE, BSE, they report my name that okay, Aditya purchased this stock, Aditya purchased that stock. So so I've been doing this for 7 years now. It's a proper knowledge moat. I have been doing this for a long time, so I know like how it works.
Aditya, you said you guys are the only small cap focused newspaper in the world. So do you believe you have a big share of a small market, a big share of a big market, a small share of a big market?
It's a huge market. Okay, all investors want to buy something called as multi-bagger stocks, or stocks which multi-bagger stocks. Multi-bagger stocks are basically 100x stocks, okay, or stocks which become very big, 10x, 20x, 50x, 100x, 5x, right? And that is exactly what investors want, right? And you know, right? People say stock tip दे दो जो बढ़ जाए, right? अभी stock tip से कुछ नहीं होता है, इन्वेस्टिंग होती है डेटा पे, तो डेटा मांगना चाहिए लोगों को, टिप्स नहीं मांगनी चाहिए कि डेटा दे दो ताकि मैं डेटा को पढ़ के समझ लूँ क्या करना है. मल्टी बैगर कौन सा स्टॉक बनता है, या वेल्थ क्रिएटर कौन सा स्टॉक बनता है? छोटा बच्चा ही आगे जाके बड़ा होता है, राइट? बड़ा बच्चा कितना बड़ा होगा? बड़ा बच्चा तो आगे बूढ़ा होता है, राइट? मतलब इफ यू आर ऑलरेडी एज्ड. So small companies have the capability to become big companies, right? And that is where that is what every investor wants, right? That is how wealth is created. So essentially, everyone sort of everyone wants to have information which is focused on small caps. And one more thing is, I think one interesting part about our information is that we charge money from our consumer, right? Which means that and no one else actually charges money from the consumer, right? Most of the information in the world is free, right? Now, free information, how do you know it is aligned to your interest? But compare Sovrenn, which is charging information from you, money from you, with free information. Free information may not be aligned to your interests. But if my information is not aligned to your interest, Sovrenn dies, right? So our information is completely aligned with you. We are completely unbiased, completely aligned with you. Very few people in the world are completely aligned to you, right? Because most pieces of information are free. So therefore, interest alignment is very, very high. People know that we are unbiased source of information, and that is why we are growing very fast as well. I think, this year we will be the largest stock market platform in India, and we just started like 1 year back.
I feel we have painted the stock market in a very positive, very jolly, very flowery mode in like the past however much time it has been.
Yeah.
I want to talk about fear. Fear is very important. Fear is a core human trait,
Yeah.
and fear in investment is called risk. Small companies go and become big companies.
But small companies also.
Small companies also die, and more small companies die than the ones who grow up to be bears. What do I do? I'm confused now. So, like, what small company will become bear?
Firstly, never invest in a single small company. That is stupid because the company can die, and more companies die than they become big, right? So, firstly, you have to invest in 20 companies at least. Invest in 20 companies.
Where does that number come from? 20. You've said this number so many times. How do you know this number?
My past experience, 20 companies diversify risk quite a bit. Okay, 20 companies is exact equal allocation. Now, what is the maximum upside that you can get, and what's the maximum downside that you can get? Maximum upside is infinite. 100 rupees stock can become a billion rupees. Maximum upside is infinite, right? What's the maximum downside? 100%. You can't go negative. मतलब पैसे तो आपसे कंपनी मांगेगी नहीं आके. तो बढ़ने को infinite वो है. If you hit one good stock, it can make like infinite money for you. So the game is in your favor. Okay. And second thing, this is a game of pure data, right? Now we talked about order books and we talked about Nikhil Kamath coming to your podcast, right? Now, after let's say you announce publicly that Nikhil Kamath is coming to the podcast after 3 months. 3 months the day comes up and Nikhil Kamath does not come. Publicly, झूठ बोला, बेच दो stock को, झूठ बोल रहा था, right? So the moment you feel that your hypothesis is invalidated, you sell the stock like भाई ये तो पागल है, ये तो झूठ बोल रहा था, right? तो you are investing on data, right? कि भाई मैं पैसा लगा रहा हूँ थॉट बिस्ट्रो पे क्योंकि निखिल कामत आने वाला है, मैं लगा रहा हूँ किसी में क्योंकि इसका 700 करोड़ का ऑर्डर बुक है. अभी रिजल्ट का डे आएगा, देयर इज अ डे ऑफ रेकनिंग, जिस दिन आपको दिखाना पड़ेगा निखिल कामत को, नहीं आया मैं आपका स्टॉक बेच दूंगा, उसका आया मैं उसका रखा रखूंगा. तो मेरी डाउन साइड्स क्या है, जो मैंने बोला कि आपका पैसा जीरो हो सकता है, वो जीरो नहीं होगा क्योंकि 3 महीने में मेरे को रिजल्ट पता लग जाएगा जो बताया था, राइट? वर्स्ट केस क्या होगा, 3 महीने में 30% लॉस हो जाएगा, मैं लॉस लेके निकल जाऊंगा. जहां भी मैं ट्रू होगा वो चलता रहेगा स्टॉक ऊपर, राइट? क्योंकि हैवी वो एग्जीक्यूशंस होंगे तो वहां, और अपसाइड मेरी इनफिनिट थी, तो आई विल विन द गेम. इट्स अ गेम which is very hard to lose. And anyway, one more important point, every company in the stock market, the economic incentives are to grow the company and not die, right? All founders want their companies to grow, और जो बेचारा इतना मेहनत से ऑर्डर ला रहा है, there are very strong incentives to grow. So ideally economic incentives are in your favor, not against you, right? And you can easily sell. You are not a big investors find it hard to sell because there are liquidity problems. Retail investors don't find it hard to sell. बेचो, खत्म करो, आगे बढ़ो. So it's a game in your favor.
How much time? Like, I've had stocks, penny stocks, which I've held for 4-5 years. Took them 4.5 years to actually bounce, and then once they bounce, they do go 40x, 50x in size, right? How much time do I wait?
Penny stock is not a good stock. Firstly, penny stocks are prone to manipulation. Most penny stocks are pound companies which became penny. So they're bad companies, okay? If you were a pound earlier and you became a penny now, that means you're bad, right? You did something bad to become a penny.
Let's call them microcaps.
Very different. Microcaps are small companies. Penny stocks are companies which became small because of bad behavior in the past. So very, very different things, right? Small, again, how much time is a good question. You are investing based on a hypothesis. Nikhil Kamath coming to your show in 3 months. If it doesn't happen, you know in 3 months that this hypothesis is not validated. It's false, right? All companies are mandated to show the results in 3 months. There are some SME companies which are mandated to show results in 6 months. In 6 months, your hypothesis gets validated or like negated, whether it is true or not, right? Very simple. Thought Bistro example, Nikhil Kamath doesn't come, sell Thought Bistro. Nikhil comes buy Thought Bistro. Then of course I will hold Thought Bistro, right? As simple as that. Hypothesis validation.
Today, I am watching this podcast. I want to sign up for Sovrenn. I want to start investing in the market. What are the 3 things I must do if I am starting from absolute zero? I have no idea what the stock market is. So, what are the 3 steps that I have to take?
Firstly, without learning investing, you should not invest in the stock market. The first thing is watch the 2 videos which Sovrenn has, which will, after watching the 2 videos, you have a very good understanding of investing. And of course, you will not have experience, but you will have all the theoretical knowledge needed to invest. That's the first thing. Watch the 2 videos. Second thing, stock market, you can lose money as well, right? So you have to be very careful. Second, decide an amount of money which you can afford to lose 20% of. For example, for me, when I started, let's say my wealth was 100 rupees, I invested only 10 rupees in the stock market. Okay, so that if the 10 rupee goes down by 20%, I lose 2 rupees, which is practically immaterial, right? You lose 2 rupees, you will not feel bad, right? So invest a very small amount of money, 10 rupees, or let's say if you are like more risk taker, invest 20 rupees and be prepared to lose 4 rupees. Not a big loss, right? If you lose 4 rupees, quit the market. That okay, you are not a good investor, you are losing everywhere. If you are somehow able to make money through hypothesis and data driven investing, then you will yourself realize that मेरा तो पैसा बन रहा है, आपका पैसा बनना चालू हो गया, आपकी सेकंड सोर्स ऑफ इनकम आ गई. अब वो बोलेंगे भाई मेरी पहली सोर्स ऑफ इनकम यहाँ से आ रही है, मेरी दूसरी यहाँ से आ रही है, मैं इसको स्केल अप करता हूँ, 20 का 30 करोगे और पैसा बनेगा, 30 का 40 करोगे और पैसा बनेगा. आप 20 रुपये पे बना पाओगे पैसा, तो आप 30 रुपये बना पाओगे, 40 रुपये बना पाओगे, क्योंकि आपको कॉन्फिडेंस आ जाएगा कि हाँ मेरे को पैसा बनाना आता है. 20 पे गया तो छोड़ दो, नहीं हो पाएगा, मत करो.
Where do I invest in the stock market? How do I invest?
You invest on 20 hypotheses which you find the most powerful.
Procedure.
Actual investment कहाँ से होती है? क्योंकि आप तो मुझे न्यूज़ दे दिए. इन्वेस्टमेंट कहाँ से करूँ मैं?
तो आपको एक ब्रोकर के साथ अपना अकाउंट खुलवाना पड़ेगा, ठीक है? जीरोधा, ग्रो, अपस्टॉक्स, उसके साथ अकाउंट खुलवाना पड़ेगा. आपको इन्फॉर्मेशन पढ़ना पड़ेगा, अपना माइंडसेट बनाना पड़ेगा कि यार ये कंपनी मुझे अच्छी लग रही है, थॉट बिस्ट्रो मुझे अच्छा लग रहा है, निखिल कामत आने वाला है.
Now we are literally getting Kamath. We are even selling Zerodha to people. Like, come on, bro.
You'll find the stock there listed and you buy stocks through a broker. So you have to have a broker demat account and you can buy a stock.
So I need to watch the investing videos. I need to decide कितना invest करना है. You recommend between 10 to 20% of your income where you are willing.
Not income, wealth basically, 10 to 20% of your wealth, which you can.
Where you are willing to lose 20% of that wealth.
Correct.
Your recommendation is if that person loses 20% of that 20% that they have invested, they should stop investing and reconsider. Otherwise, they should keep going.
Correct.
And investment can be done through a broker such as Zerodha, Upstocks, Grow, etc.
And one more thing, invest in exactly 20 stocks. So 20% wealth, 20 stocks. So 1% wealth per stock, right? Very simple. So then because if you invest in 2 stocks and you lose money, people can lose money in 2 stocks, right? 2 stocks में कोई hypothesis driven investing नहीं होती, उसके लिए डेटा चाहिए ना, हम डेटा की बात करें. Invest in 20 stocks, 20% wealth, 1% per stock, and if you're able to make money, you will yourself scale it up. If you're not able to make money, you will yourself scale it down.
Do you believe your way is the only correct way of investing in the stock market?
There are many ways to invest in the stock market. Now, 20 stocks, some people say have 40 stocks, some people say have 10 stocks. That's very low, right? What I am suggesting is a way which is amongst the lowest risk ways. My downside is capped at 4% of wealth, right? That is how I defined, right? 20% wealth, 20% loss, so 4% money you lose. So the cost of testing whether you're good enough or not is 4% of your wealth, which is not a big cost, right? By investing in 20 stocks, again, you are sort of giving yourself a chance to win. If I could have said that invest in 5 stocks or 3 stocks, then you're not giving yourself a chance to win. It's a tough game, right? It's a very tough game. Finding 3 great stocks. Investing in 20 stocks, you're diversifying adequately. So it's a way where your win percentage gets maximized. Okay, that is why I suggest this way, that your victory percentage is getting maximized by this way. And now one more thing which you will say is that यार मैं क्यों करूँ स्टॉक मार्केट इन्वेस्ट, 10% ही तो बनता है, 12% ही तो बनता है, राइट? एफडी में बनता है 5%, राइट? 5-6%. आप बोलोगे स्टॉक मार्केट में तो 12 बनता है, तो मैं आपको कुछ डेटा दे देता हूँ. एचएनआई इन्वेस्टर्स टिपिकली 40% ईयर ऑन ईयर बनाते हैं अपने 500 करोड़ के पोर्टफोलियो पे, 40%, ठीक है? और छोटे पोर्टफोलियो पे क्या होता है कि 70-80% भी बनाया जा सकता है. वॉरेन बफे का एक पुराना इंटरव्यू पढ़ना, ही सेड कि यार मेरे लिए तो 60-70% बनाना बहुत आसान है. उनके लिए बहुत आसान था कि 60-70% इज वेरी इजी फॉर हिम, That is what it says. According to me, for an investor with a small portfolio, 50-60%, if you're a good investor, 50-60% return is not that difficult. Even HNI investors make 40% on crores of portfolio. Okay, and 50% and 5%, they seem very close. 5 का 50 कितना ही फर्क पड़ेगा, बट आप कंपाउंडिंग की मैथ करना. अगर आप 50% से पैसा कंपाउंड करते हो, अगर आप चाहो तो कर लो. अगर आप 5% से करते हो तो भी कर लेते हैं, और अगर आप 50 से करते हो तो भी कर लेते हैं. 5% से किया कंपाउंडिंग, एक साल के बाद कितना हुआ? 1.05, 100 रुपए का 105 रुपए. 2 साल बाद कितना हुआ? 110 रुपया. 10 साल बाद मानो 5 × 50 प्लस थोड़ी कंपाउंडिंग लग गई, 100 रुपए का 160 रुपए हो जाएगा. अब 50% से कंपाउंड करते हैं. एक साल बाद कितना हुआ? 1 का 1.5. 2 साल बाद कितना हुआ? 1.5 × 1.5, 2.25. 4 साल बाद कितना हुआ? 2.25 × 2.25, 22 का स्क्वायर 484 होता है, मैं बता रहा हूँ. हाँ नहीं, 4 साल बाद बोलो, 2 का 4 कर रहा हूँ मैं. 2 साल बाद 2.25 हुआ, 4 साल बाद 2.25 × 2.25 हुआ, राइट, विच इज 5 गुना. ठीक है. 8 साल बाद कितना हुआ? 25 गुना, राइट. और 10 साल बाद कितना हुआ? 5 × 2 साल का नंबर, विच इज 2.2 गुना, राइट. तो आप कर लो, मतलब बहुत बड़ा नंबर आएगा, 50 गुना. तो जहां एक जगह आपका पैसा डबल हो रहा है, एक गुना आपका पैसा 50 गुना हो रहा है. इतना बड़ा अंतर है. सोचो 1 लाख से चालू करो, एफडी में डालो, बनेगा 2 लाख रुपए 10 साल के बाद. 50% कंपाउंडिंग करो, क्या बन जाएगा उसका? मतलब आप बहुत बड़े नंबर पे बैठे हो.
Again, there is a rosy image being painted here, but the likelihood of getting those numbers and the likelihood of getting the downside are also equated together.
आप जो टेस्ट रन कर रहे हो वो कितने देर रन करना चाहिए? Until you hit 4% loss, or sorry, until you hit that 4 rupee loss, until you hit that 20% loss, what is the timeline?
तो देखो, अगर आप डिसेंट स्टॉक पिकिंग कर रहे हो ना, तो लॉसेस बहुत ज्यादा ऐसे आने नहीं चाहिए, अनलेस आप बहुत खराब टाइम ऑफ इकोनॉमी पे इन्वेस्ट कर दो. अब अभी आप मुझे बताओ,
मैं आज की बात कर रहा हूँ. आप खराब टाइम, लेट्स टॉक अबाउट टुडे.
आज के टाइम पे देखो, अगर आप डिसेंट इन्वेस्टिंग कर रहे हो, अच्छे वैल्यूएशन पे स्टॉक ले रहे हो, तो आपको 1 साल में आपका पैसा बनना चाहिए. आप अगर नहीं बना पा रहे 1 साल तक, तो छोड़ दो, नहीं बने.
1 साल तक टेस्टिंग करना चाहिए. अगर उस 1 साल के अंदर अंदर मेरा 20% डाउनसाइड हिट हो जाता है, देन आई शुड क्विट. If within 1 year, if I don't make any money, I should also quit. If within 1 year I am making some money, then you should keep going.
और एक और है, थोड़ा इसमें एक इंपॉर्टेंट चीज ये भी कि यार इतना सिंपल नहीं है, आपको इंडेक्स रिटर्न से कंपेयर करना पड़ेगा. इंडेक्स क्या होता है कि यार आप तो इन्वेस्टिंग कर रहे हो, मार्केट में एक इंडेक्सेस होते हैं, इंडाइसेस होते हैं. अगर लेट्स से आप स्मॉल कैप्स में इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हो, ठीक है, अगर स्मॉल कैप इंडेक्स की 30% 20% डाउन है, तो हर बंदा उस साल 20% डाउन होगा, इनफैक्ट ज्यादा डाउन होगा. तो अगर आपकी किस्मत बहुत खराब है, आपने एक बहुत खराब साल चूज कर लिया जहाँ पे इंडेक्स ही गिरा हुआ है, ठीक है, और आप भी 20% डाउन हो, तो कोई दिक्कत वाली बात नहीं, सभी डाउन है, पूरी मार्केट ही डाउन होगी. अगर इंडेक्स 20% अप है और आप 20% डाउन हो, तो मतलब कुछ गड़बड़ है, आप नहीं कर पा रहे हो, राइट. आपको एक मतलब आप अच्छा करो कि बुरा करो कैसे पता चलेगा? ये एब्सोल्यूट से पता नहीं चलेगा, ये रिलेटिव बेंचमार्क से पता चलेगा. उससे आप कंपेयर करो और देखो आप उसके विज़ावी कहाँ पे बैठे हो.
आप बेंचमार्क में क्यों नहीं इन्वेस्ट करते?
यार बेंचमार्क को बीट करना ही हमारा गोल है ना. अगर बेंचमार्क 10% से ग्रो कर रहा है, हम चाहेंगे हम 40% से ग्रो करें. सो बीटिंग द बेंचमार्क इज आवर गोल. Investing in benchmark is simple. Just invest in benchmark, you get benchmark returns. No benchmark grows by 40%, but HN investors grow their money by 40%, right? So they are massively beating benchmark. And this is public data, again, check HN investors. They are massively beating benchmark. So the goal of an investor is to massively beat benchmark.
The reason I ask this question is because here we are not looking at investing as income source number 1. We are looking at it as income source number 2 or income source number 3. What you are saying, it seems like there is a fair amount of work that goes into this. There's a fair amount of time that I'm going to have to spend, at least when I get started. Maybe once I get started, I don't have to spend that daily time, but I have to spend that time every week or every month or every few months. Whereas if I am looking at this as a second source of income, why should I not just invest in a benchmark and go for it? Because अगर benchmark down होगा, पूरा market down होगा, benchmark up होगा, पूरा market up होगा. मैं 40 नहीं 12, 15, 18 बना रहा हूँ, but that's my passive income. Why should I care? That is my, like, I don't have to think about it.
पहले टाइम जो आपका कमिटमेंट है, that is 30 minutes a day and couple of hours on the weekend. उतने में आप इन्फॉर्मेशन स्टडी कर सकते हो. Now you are calling it passive income, which I am disagreeing, because after 5 years this will become your main source of wealth generation. Because after 5 years आपका जो सेविंग्स है वो बढ़ के हो जाएगा 50 लाख रुपीस. आपकी सैलरी 12 लाख से इतनी नहीं बढ़ी होगी. सैलरी कितना 10% से कंपाउंड हो रहा होगा. अभी 50 लाख रुपीस में 30% आएगा तो 15 लाख दे देगा. तो आफ्टर 6 years this will become your main income. This became my main income from my passive source of income. And I would not call it income, it is wealth creation, wealth पे wealth build हो रहा है, right? So I left my job when this was bigger than my salary. And trust me, You can check my previous references. I was a VP at Lenskart, senior VP at Stanza Living. I had fairly decent salaries. But then also, this became a more bigger source of income than the money that I was making from my salary.
What has your portfolio compounded at for the past 7 years?
So for the past 4.5 years.
Let's talk about 7 years. You've been investing since 7 years.
So my portfolio has become like almost 8x, 9x from.
What is that in percentage now?
First 3 years I got 10% CAGR, not much, 12% CAGR. Post that it was 70% CAGR. Last 4 years 70% CAGR. So I have almost 8x, 10x, roughly exactly that number in my portfolio. I don't know the exact number. 8x के आसपास मोटा-मोटी हुआ. तो 8 गुना पैसा है.
So India's bull run has been very fruitful.
And not just for me, for more people as well. That is why I say that if you look at, I'll give you an example of a HNI investor. Unka portfolio, and this is the best investor in India I'm talking about. He had a portfolio of 40 crores in 2021. Guess what the value is today?
400.
550 crores. From 40 crores to 550. This is like game-changing wealth.
This is exclusively in the stock market? There is no venture capital, no private equity, no private investments, no business income, nothing else?
And now one more point. Venture capital, you compared venture capital, right? Small companies listed in the stock markets are also startups. So it's very similar to venture capital investing. The point is that in venture capital investing, you can't exit an investment. It is illiquid, right? आप बेच नहीं सकते इसको. In micro cap investing or small cap investing, you can easily exit investments because there's a liquid market for it.
But the definition of small cap for you was 20,000 crore.
But I
And
think
the definition of a venture cap is 5 crore, 10 crore ka revenue. So like there is a
we
gap.
do cover 500 crore companies, 600 crore companies. 500 crore is how much? How many million? $100 million, right? Yeah. And there are 50 crore companies also which are listed. There are 20 crore companies also which are listed. Okay. So you can find a $3 million company listed in the stock market. And you can find a $3 million startup as well. It's very similar. You should not invest in $3 million stock market companies because काफी बार इनमें कुछ दिक्कत होती है. I would say that I don't, my thinking is that don't invest less than maybe $15. I think $15 million. I think that's sort of the number which is there in my head. आपको $15 million के startup बहुत मिलेंगे stock market में. $15-20 million के startup भी मिलेंगे सब.
So we have a tradition on the podcast. The previous guest has left a question for you. We would like you to answer that question and leave a question for the next guest. So the question that we have for you is, how would you cope up or deal with failure in your business?
See, for me, failures are a part of life. I think failures teach you something, right? So I like failures. I fail a lot. So I think I would say I've had much more failures than successes, right? So for me, failure is a part of life. I don't mind failures. I learn from them. I think that's how I deal with them. That every failure teaches you something much more than the success, right? So I learn from my failure and take it, like it makes me a better person, right? So that is my way of sort of dealing with failure. That you just learn whatever the failure teaches you and become a better person.